my gosh, what if this thing just stops? And I know they say SVTs are not harmful. Yes. But when they've been going on for years and years and years, and 15 hours at 200, or, and another 10 hours at 150, I'm sorry, that can't be good for your heart.
Ladies and gentlemen, my guest today spent her childhood in Morocco, teenage years in France, and as a young adult came to the United States, where she found herself stuck in an abusive relationship, battling supraventricular tachycardias. With this rich tapestry of experience, she is the embodiment of strength and resilience. Meet Karima Burdette. Karima has overcome significant health challenges, including her SVTs, unexpected repercussions from breast implants and their removal, and finally going through cardiac ablation. These trials haven't held her back. Instead, she's used them as a catalyst to create a platform to help others. In today's conversation, Karima will dive deeper into her experiences with us, so please join me in welcoming a woman of courage and authenticity, Karima Burdette, as she bravely tells her story with us. Hi, Karima. Welcome to the show. Really glad to have you. Hi. Karima, you've had like a pretty storied life, I believe. Can you just tell me quickly, how you got started, coming to America, all this stuff?
Sure. So I was born in Morocco, and I grew up in France. At age 12, I moved to France with my mom and my stepdad. And at age 18, I had the privilege to come to the United States in an exchange program to work here. I was supposed to be here for a year and a half and go back home. But I loved it so much, I decided to stay, and I've been here since. So I love being here. I am married to my wonderful husband, almost 22 years now. We have 2 beautiful children together, and I'm just so blessed to be here. I just love the U.S. It was my dream to be here, and I'm just grateful. So.
And what was the push, you would say, to start just putting yourself out there on YouTube?
Well, to be honest with you, my faith. I became a Christian. I was Muslim previously when I lived in Morocco, obviously. And then my faith kind of was all over the place. I wasn't Muslim. I wasn't Christian. I wasn't nothing really for a while. I was lost. And when I came to the U.S., when I met my husband now, he was a Christian and I became a Christian. And, it just, I don't know, everything that I went through, I felt this push to share my stories. I went through so much in my life, and I feel like by sharing our stories, sometimes they help others, and then you don't feel like you're alone when you're going through something, and it's very helpful. And why not? Why not? I mean, it doesn't hurt me to go online and share about, that I had an ablation done, or that I had a breast implant rupture in my body, or that I went through an abusive relationship, how I overcame all those things. I think it's helpful for people to know, that if I can overcome it, so can they,
Yeah. So how you've really put yourself out there, and really, like you said, you've just talked about everything. And what has the feedback from your YouTube community been? Was it what you were expecting?
Yes. So really 99% of the people responding, people are asking questions about the ablation. I've had like hundreds of people, over 298 comments, I think, where people are just asking, matter of fact, I had a lady this week who reached out to me and she said, thank you, thank you, thank you. Literally like that. That was her message to me. She said, I've been in bed, stuck with SVTs constantly, and I was terrified to do anything. And she said, I saw your video and I'm going to see my doctor tomorrow. And I'm like, I'll be praying for you. So we've been talking back and forth. I try to encourage people. I don't want to make the decision for them. I believe that's a personal decision because it's a big decision, but I am willing to hold your hand and take you, through that process. If I can help you, I will be there for you.
I think that means a lot. I actually, whenever someone tells me they've got a procedure coming up, I always say, well, let me know how it goes. And sure enough, 6 weeks, 8 weeks later, there's another comment and they're telling me the whole story. I just love that. I think that's great. And so I find your channel to be an encouraging place to be. So
thank you.
Can we talk a bit about your SVT and your history with SVTs? And let's start with the easy stuff first. When you have SVTs going on, What does that feel like?
Terrifying. Terrifying. Can I share about when it happened, when I started having them?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I was in my 20s and I was married previously to someone, and I was in a very abusive relationship. I wasn't eating, I wasn't taking care of myself. I was working myself to death, literally. And one day I was just in the middle of a haircut, and I felt something pumping, and I never had an SVT, so I didn't know what it was, and it wouldn't go away. It just kept on going, and the more time went by, the faster it went, and it went from feeling it in my chest to feeling it in my head, in my arms, and my legs. It was literally like my whole body was a heartbeat, and it was terrifying. I didn't know what it was, and about maybe 10 minutes later, the customer that was in my chair that I got done with, he was like, "You need to go to the hospital, like now. This is serious." So I went to the hospital. And as soon as I got in there in the emergency room, they took me back. They started putting something in my veins to slow down my heart rate. It was at 250 at the time. And the lady, she was like, "I'm sorry, this is not working out. We're going to have to stop your heart and restart it." And I didn't really know what that meant, but I was scared. And at the time, again, I didn't really have a good support from the ex-husband. So I was pretty much alone. And so anyway, they went ahead and put this stain inside my arm. And you could feel the pressure, like it was a tightness in my arm, in my shoulder, in my neck. And all of a sudden, it was in my heart. And it stopped for a few seconds. And I felt it because I just gasped for air. And that was just very scary moment. So I came to, and the next day I saw the doctor, and he's like, "Okay, it seems like you're under a lot of stress. Maybe we should put you on some kind of medication or something." And I'm like, "I don't want to be on medication." I said, I know what I need to do. I need to leave this relationship before he either kills me or I die from stress. So I did. I left that relationship, and I didn't have any more tachycardia for years. After that, until 8 years later, when I met my husband, I had my own hair salon, and I was pregnant with my first child, and I had one. And I think he was stressed, possibly, from having the business. But I also had breast implants put in between that time, so that could be also contributed to my tachycardia. I don't know, but so I had that, but it went away on its own. And then it happened.
So you didn't have to go to the hospital that time?
No, it went away. Like after 5 minutes, it went away on its own. Yeah.
Were you on any sort of daily medication or anything?
Nothing. I wasn't on anything at the time. And then it happened maybe about a year later again. And then in 2010, after having two of my children, I decided to redo my breast implants. It was about 10 years after I got my first pair, and I was like, well, I'll get them redone. I was pregnant and, breastfed my kids, and, maybe it would be a good thing for me to do. And so I got them redone, and I got silicones put in. And in 2015, I started getting extremely sick. I started getting tired. I started getting burning all over my body, especially my left side, my whole left torso to my leg. Bladder problems, fibromyalgia symptoms, where you feel like your body is like a big bruise, burning in my heels, hair falling out, headaches, fatigue, just crazy symptoms. Wow. I went through 2 years of testing from neurologist. How do you say that? I went to see a back doctor. He's like, "There's nothing wrong with you." OBGYN, "There's nothing wrong with you." Got nerve testing, muscle testing, nothing. There's nothing wrong with you. Over and over again. And at this time, I was getting also tachycardias coming in, just slowly, maybe every 6 months, I would have one. And I was like, oh my gosh, what is wrong with me? Why am I so sick? And nobody could figure out what was going on. And then the longer it went over those 2 years, the more tachycardia I was having. So I went to see a cardiologist, and he was like, a lot of women that have breast implants have this problem. And as soon as they take their breast implants out, it goes away. Well, the problem was I was getting them, and nobody can catch them because I would get one, I would go to the emergency room, and by the time I get there, it would be gone. And then they would do all these
AFIBers actually have this same challenge. Like when I was first being diagnosed, I ended up having to wear a monitor for like a week for them to catch anything. And even then, they didn't get the full episode. They just got like little skip beats and stuff. So it can be really challenging for people like us, right? With a come and go.
Yeah.
Because they want to give you the right ablation for the right problem. Because there are different types of ablations. So yeah. So how did you end up dealing with that?
So I did have the monitor. They did put that on me. And for a week, nothing happened, of course, and they kept coming. And the worst was they started coming and they would stay a very long time. They went from 5 minutes to literally hours and then to 15 hours.
Wow.
And the two worst one that I had, I was actually, I did a pageant, Mrs. Georgia, America. And I did a pageant. And right before I went on stage to begin with, it started. I was like, oh no, I got a 3-hour pageant to run. I've been getting ready for this for like a year, like physically, buying all kinds of gowns and stuff, to get ready. And I was on stage and I told my husband, because he was backstage with me, I said, it just started, and I'm like, I can't stop now. I'm here. So I ran through the whole 3 hours of the pageant. I made it first runner up. It's probably a good thing I didn't win. I probably died right there, literally. But my heart was still going. It was probably over 200. And I was exhausted. I was white as a ghost. I couldn't tell. But my family, they were like, there was something wrong with you on stage. What was wrong with you? They were like, you are white. And for you to look white, that's really strange because you're 10, And I'm like, I have tachycardia. So when the pageant got done, we got to the hospital. It was still going. And I had Metropolol at the time, so I took it. And we tried everything. Legs up in the air, ice on my face. We tried everything and nothing worked. And eventually went away after I don't know.
Did those things sometimes work?
Sometimes they do, especially like the maneuver where you push, which is kind of weird. That worked. Yeah. But I tried everything, and the worst time that it happened to me was my husband lost his mom, and we were at the viewing, and it started. It just came out of nowhere, and then it lasted till the next morning. And they were about to bury her, and I needed to be there with my husband, and I couldn't be there with my husband because I was stuck in bed. And you feel hopeless. And I didn't want to go to the emergency room because I'm like, if I go, they're just going to send me home. What's the point?
So did the come and go nature that it can come on out of nowhere, it can derail major life events just out of nowhere?
Yeah.
Did that create, for me, this created a chronic anxiety.
Yes.
I had to deal with. Did you have a problem with that?
Yes, I did. And it started happening. I was on vacation, literally just laying by the pool. Bam. I was waiting for my daughter at school in the school line. Bam. I was at Walmart buying groceries. Bam. I woke up with it one time. I woke up and I'm like, what is wrong with me? And I could feel like I was getting kind of cold. So I guess it has been going on for a while. And I woke up, it was 200 and I was sleeping.
So it'd come on in your sleep even.
Yeah. It was just crazy. So by that time, after this happened, after much praying and crying, because I was really I was getting depressed because I was thinking, what is wrong with me? Why am I having all these symptoms and nobody could figure it out, including my surgeon who put the implants in. So I said, I want him out. Just take him out. So he took him out, and one of the implants has been ruptured for years. It was disgusting. It was yellow. It has been releasing all this toxicity in my body and making me sick. And immediately when they took him out, my burning stopped in my torso. Immediately. I woke up and it was gone. My energy came back. 80% of my symptoms went away from the surgery. And then 4 years later, I was still dealing with the tachycardia. And I went to see my doctor, and he's like, well, we don't know where the problem is. So it's hard for us to to do anything. So then he finally tells me about this little thing. I don't know if you could see it. It's called Kardia.
Yeah.
It's this stain saved my life. And I'm thinking, why didn't he tell me about this a long time ago? But he's like, hey, by the way, there was this little thing you can buy on Amazon. And when you get a tachycardia, just go into your phone and register, your tachycardia and send it to me. So sure enough, like a couple of weeks later, I got one. And at my house, I recorded it. I sent it to him. He saw exactly where the problem is. He called me and I went in. He's like, we got it. We know where the problem is. He's like, I'm going to have you talk to my surgeon.
So did he explain to you in a way you understood where the problem was?
He did. He said, well, he couldn't because, he's just a cardiologist, but the surgeon did. He's like, okay, it seems like it's in this area. He's like, most of the time, he's like, I've done this 400 times and I've never had a problem. I've never had anybody return to me, but it's still terrifying. I mean, you have one heart, it's not like they're working on a leg,
Right.
And I was scared, but when I'm laying there in this tachycardia mode, and there is nothing you can do, and I'm literally like desperate, and I'm hopeless, and my children are crying because they see mommy laying in bed. I'm sorry, I'm getting emotional, but for hours on end, and you can do nothing. You're just stuck. It's terrible, and I was terrified when the guy was like, he's like, I'm just gonna go in and do this, and sometime we have to do it again, and like, oh my gosh, And I came to the conclusion where I was like, you know what, if I don't do this, I'm going to die. I'm going to have so many of these tachycardias eventually. One of them is going to take me out. I mean, I'm 49 years old now, and I was like, I'm just going to pray about it, and I'm going to let the Lord lead the way. And I just had to take a leap of faith and do it. I was like, I'm going to die either way, so might as well just try it,
Yeah.
So I went in and I got it done in 2021, February of 2021. And oh my gosh, I wish I had done it sooner. It has saved my life. That anxiety you were talking about, that fear of like, oh gosh, when is it coming? I mean, I couldn't do anything. I was terrified to go anywhere, because like you, I mean, I was like, when is it going to come? When is it going to come up,
Yeah.
But I'm so glad I did it. The surgeon was amazing. He was in and out in like 45 minutes. He did a great job.
I think the anxiety nature of having a come and go heart rhythm problem, really, it's something very difficult for someone who's never had it to understand. For me, I was even afraid to be alone at home, and I work remotely from home, and the family's out all day. For me, that was even scary. And the thought of traveling, like getting on an airplane and going somewhere,
yes,
like just forget about it. I'm pleased to report I'm now able to do that, but at the time, it felt like I was cut off from the world, dark and lonely place, and that even the people that truly love me didn't quite understand, despite their best efforts. So I see for you that your faith carried you through that. So maybe, do you want to talk about that aspect of it at all? Like I know your faith is a big part. How did your faith carry you through all this adversity?
Well, really just coming before the Lord and reading my Bible, like in the morning, gave me that peace. But, for a while I was really depressed, especially with the breast implant thing, because you're thinking, these are doctors. They're supposed to know what's wrong with me. I mean, I had a mammogram a week before my surgery when I explanted. And the lady calls me back and she goes, there's nothing wrong with your implants. They're perfect. I mean, you cannot have your faith in anything else but Jesus. I'm sorry, but it's true. It's totally true. There's nothing. I mean, you can't have your faith in you, in your family, in the things you own, in the money you have in the bank, because everything is temporary and no money can save you. No money.
It's kind of weird now. If you look back, it probably looks like to everyone involved.
Yeah.
That it was so obvious.
Yeah.
Now that they've taken it out and there was a leak. And I'm gonna show the graphic on screen. I'll warn people, if you're queasy by this stuff now, just turn your head away for 10 seconds. I'm gonna throw the graphic up, and I'll let you know when it's off. But I mean, looking at this image, it's like and the symptoms you described, it would, okay, I take the graphic down, but it seemed like it would be so obvious to any medical, hey, you've got this going on, you have all these symptoms, what's the elephant in the room? And sometimes, doctors, people in the lab, they're human too. So
yeah, exactly. And nobody knew what it's called. It's called a silent rupture. So these new devices that they came up with, like I had my first set was saline. Saline is filled with water, salt water. So if it had to rupture, it would be like a balloon pop. It would just deflate and you go flat. Well, these are supposed to be safer, from what they said, because when they rupture, they stay intact within the shell. Well, the problem is you don't know if there's a rupture because they don't move. Your breasts stay perfect and you're having this stuff leaking into your body. You have no clue what's going on. And nobody knew. My surgeon should have referred me to get an MRI because then they would have seen it. But the mammogram did not see it. It did not see anything. And another thing, when my cardiologist couldn't figure out what's going on, my husband was like, just go see somebody else. Just get another opinion. This guy, you've been with him for years and you're stuck in bed all the time. And so I went to see this guy and he gets me in there and he does the treadmill testing and all that stuff and the ultrasound. And he comes in and he looks at me and he goes, "You need to leave. You just wasted my time. You're as healthy as a horse." And that guy just stabbed me in the heart. Because he had no clue what I was going through at the time. This was in the middle of those 2 years when I was extremely sick. I got in my car, I just started crying and I called my husband. He was like, "I'm gonna come down there," I'm like, "What are you gonna do?" I said, there is no point. But that just showed that even medical people cannot, help you sometimes, we're struggling with this stuff, but unless they actually have it, they don't know, and this stain, thank God for this stain, this $89 thing that I bought, it literally saved me because before then they couldn't catch it. So, and I have a video on that as well on my YouTube channel, just to tell people, please just go buy one, save your life, at least
actually, I think that's the one I watched this morning preparing for the call today. I actually saw that device and I have a similar one they don't make anymore. I'm really sad they don't make it because I really liked it. Yeah. But you need that, especially anyone with a come and go kind of condition. And thanks to my device, I have had only one AFIB episode in the last 1,000 days now. Oh, praise God. But I managed to, I always told my doctor, before I go into AFIB, it does something else. And I actually managed to catch it this time. So I got 3 ECGs with pre-AFib. And so when I met with the surgeon, I was able to show it. And he said, okay, now I know what type of ablation to give you. And what's happening is, because my atrium, there's a feedback loop, and so I get a rapid, steady heartbeat similar to yours, but then that after a bit flips into AFib where it goes crazy, right? So he says, I know exactly the ablation you need, and the good news is it works almost every single time. So, yeah, that's so awesome. It's really, people arm yourselves with ways to measure. And if you like when you keep a log, when you keep like a blood pressure log, body weight log, bring those. Doctors love empirical evidence because people tell them all kinds of stuff. When you can go in with something like a Kardia device or a blood pressure log, they pay close attention. That was good thinking on your part to get one. Yeah, as soon as you told me, I'm like, I'm buying one. As I got home and I bought one. And like you said, doctors are doctors and they don't know it all and they make mistakes. We're grateful that they are here, but with us, and they do help us, but we do need to do our research sometimes ourselves. Without the breast implant thing, I actually, when I was going through that depression, I went online on YouTube and I started putting my symptoms in. Like, I'm going through this stuff, and I started finding all these women with the same symptoms as me. And because I never connected that my breast implant was doing this to my body. I thought I had back problems and I had infections down here and I had all these, I was going crazy and it was just,
So I'm grateful that I was able to go and do some of the research myself, because I was able to find out the answers, and go through and get this mess out of my body. So, and I feel so much better. Thank God.
Can you take us through your ablation day? Like what?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just walk us through that.
Sure. So, it's normally when you get like a surgery, they get you in like for a prep day where they do all kinds of stuff. There was no prep day. You just showed up, and it was during COVID, actually. So it was, I went in, and they put me in this room. I had my own room with this TV and all that stuff. They plugged me in, and then she's like, well, he'll be in with you shortly. And then he came in. It's like, this procedure will be about 45 minutes. At this point, they didn't give me anything. I mean, nothing, and I was a little anxious. I was hoping he would give me something to relax, but nothing. So the guy gets me in the bed thing, pulls me in the hallway, and he goes, I said, well, would I feel anything? He's like, well, we're going to put you under, but you're not going to be completely under. He said, sometimes people feel a little bit of pressure, or, feel like we're doing something, especially when we put you in a tachycardia, because they have to put you in that mode in order to see what the problem is. Okay. And I was like, oh no, I don't want to feel anything. So we went in, and I walked into this room, and it was huge. I mean, TVs the size of this wall behind me, huge. Like, whoa. It was crazy. There was TVs, monitors all around with this bed in the middle, a huge room, bunch of people, like 10 people in the room. They laid me down, and then they started talking among each other. And then she put some kind of medicine, and she's like, okay, well, how you doing? And then, woo, I was gone. I don't remember any of it until I woke up in the room, and my husband was right there. He's like, you done? I'm like, what? Wow. I just went in.
Yeah.
And so...
Geez, I hope mine's like that.
I know, right? I was just so grateful that I didn't feel anything. But they went in through the groin area, and it was a little tiny hole. Like, you can feel it. You can even feel it or see it. It was very tiny. The only thing I did wrong was eat. I ate too much because I was really hungry. Right. And they were like, here's some food. So I just went crazy and started eating. And that was not a good idea, because it all came out in the car. Thankfully, I had a thing in my hand, but that was the only thing. But when I got home, I was kind of tired.
So was that the same day you went home?
I went home the same day. Yeah, they sent me home the same day. I didn't have any bleeding. Thankfully, everything went well. I was in the hospital maybe 3 more hours after the surgery, and then I was, they let me go. I got home. I was exhausted. I vomited again. I think because I was the medicine probably made me sick, and I was just exhausted. I fell asleep, and then the next morning I felt a little bit better. And, maybe 3 days later, I felt much better. I was back to myself. But I had a little bit of pressure just in my groin area where they went in, and my heart was doing kind of weird stuff. You could feel it. It was just kind of strange. For a couple of weeks, like, it was just kind of weird. And then maybe a couple of months later, you could tell it was getting better, because it was less and less and less. And maybe 4 months, I would think about 4 months, it went back to normal. But what I didn't do was go crazy. Like, the doctor was like, hey, everything looks great. You can go do whatever you want. I'm like, oh no, I'm not doing that, because I don't want to get back to doing this again. So what I did is I just took it easy. I didn't go work out. I didn't do anything for I think 4 weeks. I just took it easy. Like, you can walk if you want to, but I walk a lot around the house because I'm doing stuff all the time. But I didn't want to do anything to my heart, because it takes 6 weeks for the ablation for your heart to heal from this process. So I'm thinking, I don't want to go mess that up. So I just took it easy. And then right after the 6 weeks, I went back to the gym, started working out, and then I was fine. Once in a while, my heartbeat, if I have a lot going on, my heartbeat will go up to like 120. Very rarely, okay? It happens, but it comes right back down.
Okay.
And the doctor did tell me, he said, just because you had an ablation, that does not mean that your heart will never go above 100. If you work out, he would do that if you get anxious or, So he's like, he will go to that, but he should never go beyond that number, and he should never go to a tachycardia, And he's right. But the first time it happened, it freaked me out. I'm like, oh my gosh, no, I'm going to get back under, and get another surgery. But it was normal because I had another follow up with him, and I told him about it. He's like, no, it's fine. You're good. You're all good. So
you're SVT free now.
Yeah. I haven't had any. And to be honest with you, for the first 6 months, I was waiting for it to happen. I'm like, okay. Right. And I could feel it. I could feel something. I could feel the flip. But nothing happens. You know how I don't know if that happens with you, but
like a skip beat where
it's like a twitch, just like this loop.
Yes, actually, when I go into AFIB, I actually feel like I feel something, and then I get this where I feel like there's a goldfish flopping around for a second, like it feels like a fish just flopping around, and then bang, I'm in AFIB. That's how to flip from the rapid heartbeat into
wow.
So.
And that's scary. When I felt that bloop, I'm like, oh no, because before when I felt that, it went straight into tachycardia, And
for me, a few times I actually have a clue a few hours ahead because I feel right in my chest. I can feel a pressure. Mm-hmm. Like for example, I'll be in the gym powerlifting, and during one of the lifts, I'll feel it squeeze, but it won't let off. It'll stay feeling the squeezed feeling. Mm-hmm. And then about 4 hours later, I end up in AFIB. And that's happened exactly that way 3 times where I felt this squeeze. And they say it's related to the vagus nerve. Yeah. So the vagus nerve, they said it's probably got activated. You probably did something that hyperactivated it. And then I would feel that fish flopping around and bang, I'm in AFIB until whenever they can get me out of it.
That happened to me before too. Oh, I was going to say, when I was having all these problems, I was a smoker for 10 years and I quit smoking before I had my son. My son is 16. So 17 years ago, I stopped smoking. But that was before this happened, I was occasionally having a drink with my husband if we went out on a date or something. And I decided to put that down because there's certain things that will trigger SVT.
Yeah.
Including stress, including caffeine, a lot of it, including alcohol. And I'm like, I'm going to eliminate everything, just so, this was before my ablation. Nothing helped. Nothing that I did helped. I was at the gym working out and I had an SVT. I'm like, I am here working out, people. Like, seriously? It just came out of nowhere. It was like 2 times, 3 times a week, and it was just strange. I was scared like all the time. Like, when is it gonna come in? And it's not a way to live. It's just, I don't want anybody to live like that, to be honest with you. It's awful. So I'm glad that I did that, but I tried everything. I tried to, like I said, quit drinking, did everything, stopped that 5 years ago and didn't help any. I guess.
Do you have any other, like what they call comorbidities or conditions that can be semi-related, like high blood pressure, blood sugar problems, anything like that?
When they take my test, they go, "You're as healthy as a horse. Go home." That's what I get every time. All my blood test shows normal. Even when I had the implant that was open in my body, they did all kinds of tests. Everything is normal. So I guess the silicone, it leaks into your body and it hides inside your body. So the blood test won't detect it. And like certain tests won't detect it. It doesn't even show. Yeah. And I'm still dealing with that. I still have silicone on my left side. And the reason I know is because if I work out, if I get a massage, anything that's moving stuff inside my body, I get a flare. I get a flare up, and then I get sick for a couple of days. I get the same symptoms I had when I had him inside me.
I don't even know what kind of mechanism would be in our body that could clear out something like silicone, because by its very design, it's like, we use it to caulk our houses because nothing removes it, right? Like, I just don't know how the body clears out something like that.
I was so dumb to put those things in my body. And that's another thing I share about. I'm like, please don't do it. Like, I'm not going to tell you what to do.
To be fair to you, the whole knowledge of that this is a problem with that style of implants. Yeah. I think it's only been about 5 years where it's become widely known that these are vulnerable to that.
Yeah.
Like, until then, they were like sorry to quote any recent famous doctors, but they're safe and effective, right? Like safe and effective, and that people widely thought they were, and so later the long-term consequences they started. So you were probably in that group of the, and your symptoms were quite severe. I just imagine there's ladies out there with just a tiny little leak and they're not reacting to it that much, and just
do you know scary. Do you know that I have a friend of mine who had constant tachycardia, who had breast implants, who saw my story, and she's like, oh my gosh, same. She went to every doctor. There's nothing wrong with you. Go home. She's very healthy. She's fit. She works out. She eats healthy. She's younger than me. She's like in her 30s, and she took him out, and she's better now.
Wow.
Yeah. And I mean, she is better, but she did have an ablation just because they were still coming in. She was like, just to be on the safe side, since you had one, I'm going to go ahead and have one. So she did have one, and she's good now. But I had a few ladies that approached me that took their breast implants out because they were sick and they didn't realize it was the breast implants. And they're like, oh, these things are safe. Well, guess what? Now they can actually create cancer. There's actually, the FDA for the longest time did not want to admit that these things could cause problems. And now if you go on the FDA website and you write down breast implant illness, it will tell you all about all the problems that breast implants are creating for women all over the world. And now the FDA, there's so many women that were sick, they were like just constantly suing the FDA, and they were like, okay, I guess we'll put it up. But they need to educate people. The choice at the end of the day is the person's choice. But as a doctor, just tell people what to expect. And a lot of doctors don't know. They're just putting these things in. They have no clue what they're made of. These things are full of metal and copper and I mean, all kinds of stuff that should not be in the body. And we put in these devices in our bodies, and it's just crazy. I will do that again.
Are the old style ones, the saline, still available?
They are still available. They are.
Because some people are going to do it no matter what.
Exactly.
So what's your advice to them? Go for the old
kind? Again, no implant is safe. That's what I have to say about that. No implant is safe, because I thought saline were safe. And then I saw this lady, she was on Dr. Oz, and she was extremely sick for years, bedridden, right? Young woman. Her husband was like, it's all in your head, because we're going to all these doctors and nobody could figure out what's wrong with you. She's like, there is something wrong with me. Mm-hmm. She had saline implants. They took them out. They were black. The implant that's supposed to be white was black with mold. They were full of black mold that you find in your bathroom. Oh. And they were killing her on the inside. Yeah. And she showed them. She brought them to the show. So if you want to get breast implants, please just go do your research, go to the FDA, go online, go to YouTube, and look up these women who are struggling like I was and still am. I'm still paying for that. And then make your choice.
It's kind of interesting, in Canada, I don't know how they did it. I know they brought the smoking rate down in the U.S., but in Canada, we were actually really effective at getting people to quit smoking. We have very few smokers now. And part of it was they mandated that basically half the cigarette package, the government got to put a picture, and they would pick pictures of rotted lungs and, it would stare at you in the face every time you open the package. You had no way around it.
They need to do that.
Imagine if they did that with something like implants. I think a lot of people would have a second thought. I think before you had yours, I'm sure no one showed you, here's a picture of the possible consequence.
Nothing. And in France, they have the same thing on the cigarettes. And we saw that. It was like, oh, that is gross. I wish we would do that in the US. Yeah.
Well, they did two things here. They upped the price. They taxed the hell out of it. I think a pack of cigarettes here is something like $12 American.
Wow.
Because of tax. It's a lot of, anyway, whatever it is. I haven't bought one in over 30 years. So, but even 30 years ago it was.
I'm glad I quit too.
And and they can't display them on the shelves. They have to keep them hidden where they can't be seen. And you have to go in and request what you want. And then the guy will unlock the thing, reach in and pull out just that one. It's almost like a drug deal,
Wow.
And then the pack is just basically warning pictures. And there's a little logo of the company that's still there. It's a really different experience being in a corner store in the U.S. and just seeing them out. Like, it's a very different.
The doctor that did mine at the time, he didn't say anything. He was like, "This is what I can do for you," and that's it. They don't tell you anything, unfortunately. But at the time, I was very insecure, in my body, in my head, because I was, as I was saying, before, I wasn't eating, and I went down to 90 pounds. I was very unhealthy. I was throwing up every day because of the stress that I was in. And I was like, well, in the 1990s, breast implants just came out, and they were very popular. And I'm like, well, maybe if I get that done, maybe it will bring me self-esteem, and maybe he'll notice me,
Is it funny how we often try to repair, something like a self-esteem problem with something external?
Physical. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't work. It doesn't work. Yeah. And
a lot of us will do it by buying stuff we don't need.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, men will go buy the fancy car.
Yeah.
Right? And a lady might choose to get a breast implant or some sort of cosmetic surgery. And in the end, I mean, let's say 2 years after you had them done, did they bring you actual happiness, like true joy?
Nope. Didn't bring me anything but stress. That's all they brought me. No, it didn't really fix anything. It really didn't. I thought they would, but what helped me was just get away from that toxic relationship that I was in, because unfortunately you can't change people. Some people are just the way they are. And when you've been in something like that for 5 years, giving it all you got, and you give a chance after a chance, and the person doesn't change, and you sit there being abused physically and mentally. I mean, nobody should live like that, But one verse that really speaks to me in the Bible, that spoke to me, because the breast implant surgery that I had to do was very emotional for me, because, as you know, to begin with, I got them because I was insecure. So I was very attached to them, and I know they're just breast implants, but I was mentally, and I was like, how can I get away from these things? Without, it was almost like departing from something, that was very close to you. And as I was reading the Bible, I came upon Psalm 139:14, and matter of fact, this verse is in my daughter's room. I put it on her wall, because I want her to know that she's made perfectly just the way she is. She doesn't need to change a thing. And I was reading this verse, and it says, "You are fearfully and wonderfully made." And I had to come to.
Say that again. You are
fearfully and wonderfully made.
Wonderfully made.
Yeah.
Cool.
By God, we are all different. We're all made, in our own way. We all have our strength, and we all have our good things and bad things, and our gifts. And I had to just come. I had to understand that I had to come to a realization to go, you know what? These things are not my identity. My identity is in Christ, is in my faith in the Lord. And, I don't have to change a thing about my body. He made me just the way he wants me to be, And it helped a lot that my husband was very supportive as well. He's like, we just want mommy to be healthy.
Why do we have to go on this journey as human beings? Like, some of us don't, but why do most of us have to go on this journey?
Yeah.
Some pretty low and difficult times. Because we're not accepting ourselves, because we're not believing that we are fearful of made. In order to learn what seems to be, is it something about the commercialism of our society? Like, what was it? Were people like this in Monaco?
Yeah, it is society. It is society. I mean, in Morocco, it's an Arab country, so Morocco, yeah. It's an Arab country, so people they don't hear that stuff. In France, yeah.
But they're not subject to the same level of like television commercials and constant radio ads.
No. When I was growing up in Morocco, we didn't have anything like that. We didn't even watch TV. I grew up with my grandmother, and It's another story of my life.
What about France? How do we compare to like a France?
France is a lot like, is a lot like the US and Canada and things, it's definitely very much, breast implants, lips done, this done, that done. But when I was in my 20s and at the time when I came to the US, I used to buy a lot of magazines and I was comparing myself to all these women. Well, she looks perfect and she looks perfect and I need to be just like that. And, and what I didn't realize was these women were airbrushed. They would take a picture and not even these women were these women. You know what I mean? Because they were airbrushed from head to toes and they didn't have one little blemish on their body. And that's not true. We're not made perfect. The only perfect one is God. If you look at your body is not symmetrical. We have one side that's smaller than the other, and it's okay. And we
now they have this.
All these people.
They have now the young ladies today. They're and the men too. But I think for the esteem, it impacts the young ladies more. You have these things called like Instagram filters and TikTok filters, so everyone looks perfect and beautiful because they've all got the filter loaded that makes their skin an even color and removes the blemishes and. I see like Asian ladies using it and makes their eyes bigger and rounder and look more American in real time. And I've actually got, for example, an AI tool I can turn on. And I'm going to just show you what it does. Actually, I'm going to turn it on because I'm turning it on. My eyes in real time stay on the camera. Even though they're not, these aren't actually my eyes at the moment.
What? That's crazy.
It's a filter that does it in real time. I'm looking away right now, but I bet it looks like I'm looking at the camera. Wow. So I'm going to turn it back off, and now my eyes are normal again. So that's instant. We're going to grow up in this world where everything we see is not reality.
Yeah,
and it's right on their phone. It's kind of scary, and
that's why we try to really pour into our kids, and especially little girls. They're comparing themselves. Like my kids don't have any social media, none. They're allowed to go on YouTube. Kids, monitored obviously, but that's all. They don't have Instagram. They don't have Facebook. All their friends have all those things. Matter of fact, my daughter had a birthday party, and one of the girls, she was literally like this the whole time at the table. As we were, saying happy birthday and stuff, she was just on her phone the whole time. And then she came to me and she said, I'm having this problem with this friend of mine. I have Snapchat, and I gave her my code, and she's doing this to me. And I'm like, drama, getting away from reality. You could be with the other 10 girls having a great time, and instead you're worrying about somebody, it's a mess. So
something that comes to mind, thinking back, I'm going to show my age a little bit, but do you remember when the song came out, Valley Girls? And then suddenly everyone across North America, all the girls were talking like they talk in LA.
Oh yeah.
They're all imitating. And so you can just imagine now with social media.
It's bad stuff. Yeah. It's good and it's bad. It's good for this because we are helping people, but there's a lot of bad things out there,
Well, just for the record, I use lights that make my skin look a little better. And so even I'm playing this game a little bit. It's the nature of the beast. I think the difference is we as adults, we know that's happening. We're cognizant of it. Whereas a younger person, they've had it from birth onward, and they're not as cognizant of it. They think, actually, everyone is like a 10 and I'm walking around an 8. Yeah. I need to do something with myself to compete. It's kind of a sad thing.
But as a parent, I think our job is to lift our children up too, because that has a lot to do with it. Like my daughter won't dress up in any way where she's showing anything she's not supposed to be, and I wasn't like that. I wasn't always covered in my old days where I was younger. I didn't dress up like I should. But when I found Christ and I found a relationship in Him, it just, I don't know, it changed me from within. And, I felt like I didn't have to show my stuff in order to be accepted,
I think that's a big advantage too you have with YouTube, because with YouTube, you're able to reach people in a way you can't on an Instagram with a
Yeah.
or a 30-second TikTok video or 67 second, because you can actually just get in there and you can say, okay, let me tell you about what it feels like to be in an abusive relationship.
Yeah.
Just dive in deep in that, and I can tell people what it feels like, to deal with a heart condition. And so you sort of get the bruises and the scars. And I think there's almost an appetite for that too. We see this perfect illusion all the time. And then when someone comes on like with a channel like yours and you're like, hey, you know what? It's not all sunshine.
Yeah.
It's difficulty to overcome.
Yeah.
I think people respond to that too. And that's why, like, you get them too, right? You get the comments that are like,
yes,
people just pouring their hearts out.
all the time. Yeah. Yeah.
You don't see that on Instagram.
No.
You see that on Facebook.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And I think you're doing a great job as well. I mean, you have an inspiring story, and it's great. I mean, I love to see people like you out there. Same thing, you're sharing, you pouring your life out there, and and you've been transparent, and you're sharing about, how big you were and how, how better in shape you are now, and how you did it. And I mean, all that stuff, it takes courage.
I mean, for me, I'm trying to say, you know what? I'm not a skinny supermodel.
Yeah.
I'm still a bit overweight. I'm still not amazing health, but I'm in good health. Yeah. But I'm so much better than where I was.
Yeah.
And so I try to be on the realistic goal. You can at least get to where I am. Yeah. If you go beyond that, that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, Karima, the ablation is a big topic among my viewers, and there's all these stories on social media, people going for their third and fourth, and I have a theory that we don't hear from the successful ones. They sort of have their ablation, it's successful, and they're gone. So all we hear is from the people that it didn't work. So what advice would you give to a young lady or anyone dealing with this thing and they're just afraid to get it done? What would you say to them? Pretend you're talking to them right now.
Yeah. I mean, the best thing to do is really do your research. Take your time, it is a big deal. And like I was saying earlier, you only have one heart. But like I told a lot of people, how does it affect you? Is it once a year? If it's once a year, then hey, that's how I used to be, no big deal. But if it's coming in constantly, and you're in bed and you can't get up for days, or it's affecting the quality of your life to the point where you can't do anything, because that's how I was. I got to that point where I had no choice but to do the ablation. Like I pushed it and pushed it and pushed it because I want to do it. And it came to the point where I had to do something. And that's what I did. But I did my research. I took my time, and it has to be your decision. Nobody else's. You can't do it because your husband or your children or whoever. It has to be your decision, because it's very personal. I mean, it's your heart, and you also don't want to do it because your husband tells you to, because something happened, then you can make him feel bad. So it has to be a decision. But just do your research. Go online. Look up other people's stories. Every story is different, and you may learn something from me that may be different from you, and somebody else might be different. But that's what I tell people when they reach out to me and they're like, how did you? I'm terrified. I'm like, I know, I was too. I was terrified. But and I told them exactly what I just said. When it comes to the point where you have no other choice, and this is affecting you. It was affecting me. I couldn't live. I was stuck in bed. I couldn't do anything with my kids. I couldn't do any activities. I couldn't go on vacation because it would go off. I mean, I couldn't even go to the grocery store. It was ridiculous. And I have 2 kids. I have to take them to school. I have to cook dinner. And it's a terrible feeling. You feel it's terrifying, because you're like, oh my gosh, what if this thing just stops? And I know they say SVTs are not harmful. Yes. But when they've been going on for years and years and years, and 15 hours at 200, or, and another 10 hours at 150, I'm sorry, that can't be good for your heart. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's and if you're a Christian person, pray, whatever your faith is, pray for guidance. That's what I had to do. I had to pray for guidance. And once I had the peace in my heart to do this, I'm like, I'm ready. That's really what helped me.
So like in Canada, we have right now about a 1 year wait for the ablation.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm on the waiting list, and I've had an honest conversation with the EP because, like I said, I've gone pretty much one AFIB episode in about 1,000 days now.
Thank God.
And, I actually have people challenge me saying, well, if your AFIB is so rare now because of all these things you've done, why are you getting the ablation?
Yeah.
And sometimes there's considerations beyond just how often you're in it. Like, so for me, I have to be on the tiniest little bit of beta blocker each day that slows my heart rate. Mm-hmm. Well, now, thanks to all the running and exercise I'm doing, my resting heart rate, like sitting here, 41. Sitting here with my heart rate of 41. Wow. In my sleep, it's 36.
Whoa.
Yeah. So I need to get off the medication. Yeah. So I'm looking more and more like the only way off is the ablation, to be sure. Because AFib, I don't know about SVTs if it progresses, if they progress to like a permanent state, but AFib does. AFib will progress.
Yeah.
To a permanent state.
It did. SVT did too, because when they used to come, it was just only like 5 minutes and they would go away. They would come and go. And then they came and I would take 2 beta blockers, metoprolol, and I would lay down and I would do everything I was told, and it was just pa 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 pa. He would be at 200 for a couple hours. You go down to 170 for another 5 hours, another at 150 for another 5 hours. I was exhausted. It took me a week to get back to normal. It was like putting me on the treadmill for 12 hours. I was exhausted, and I could feel my body getting cold. It was awful. I never want to go through that again. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. If you can do something about it, do it,
I got to thank you for just being so open with me and my audience here today. And I know some people are going to want to follow you, and maybe they'll want to go comment and hit you up for ablation.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about your channel and where they can follow you on the various social media platforms. I'll put the links under the video.
Thank you so much. So it's actually Karima Burdette. And then I just have like a live chat with Karima as a little thing on the side to chat with me, because I feel like that's what I do with my audience, just go in there and chat with them and help them, and we communicate back and forth. I also have a Facebook page, and I don't get a lot of communication there. Once in a while, I get a private message through there, but mainly on my YouTube channel. But you are welcome to go also on my website. It's also just Karima Burdette. And the picture is kind of the same, so you'll see it's the same picture to kind of know it's me. And you're welcome to go in there as well and send me an email from there. But I am willing to help anyone. So if you have any questions, I am here. I am happy to help.
I think this has been a great show. You've been a really great guest.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I hope some people go and subscribe to her right away. If you appreciate heart-to-heart talks and just someone just laying it out and being honest, if you appreciate a faith-based person on the internet, they're getting fewer and farther between, I think. I mean, check out Karima's channel. Some of her videos are uplifting, and some of them are just dealing with life as it comes to you. So,
and sometimes you just gotta believe there's something that'll give you relief. There's something that'll have what you need. We're broken, it's tragic, we're not all elastic, but maybe there's magic, believe you could have it. And I know of sadness, the anxious and panic, the infinite vastness of all that